Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to move on with your lessons in RStudio. And to begin, we're just going to go to RStudio Cloud. It's RStudio.cloud. And we're going to log in with the account that you created last time. And I always use that option there. And you'll have probably just one project. And here's our project that we created last time. Now, I'm going to show you how to do several things today. And the first thing is called, we're going to create something called a script. And we're going to do this because this will allow us to save and edit work that we can use in the future. So in order to create a script, we're going to go to this little thing up here. That's the plus sign, and we're going to say that we're going to use our script. And you're going to see that the console pane is going to drop down, and you're now going to have some lines that you can write on up here. You can adjust the size of this by just grabbing these handles and moving them up and down. Okay, so one of the nice things about a script is we can annotate it, which means we can put our own notes and our own thoughts in here. And I'm going to annotate this. However, I suggest that you annotate your scripts in ways that are meaningful to you. And now, the way you put in comments is anything that you put on this line and you preface with a pound sign or a hashtag, you'll notice it comes up green, and anything after that is just a notation. So I'm going to put annotate scripts with hashtags at the beginning of each line. And when you do that, R is going to know when you go to run that. If I hit run up here, now you don't execute the code that you wrote by hitting enter here. You hit it by doing run. And when you do that, it doesn't do anything. You'll see that it goes to whatever was left in your console before. It doesn't do anything. So let's begin by saving this script so we don't forget. This is just like creating a Word document or an Excel document. You have to save it. And you'll know that there are changes to your script in the future when it turns red. Anything red is something there's been some change, so it's prompting you to save it. So if I hit save here, just like you would in any other document, I'm just going to call this Chad 603 class script. Now, anytime during the semester, if you're having difficulties with your script and you would like to see mine, all you have to do is email me through Canvas. Now you see your script is right here. And if I close this and go X and I click it again, you'll notice that it'll reappear in this upper left-hand pane. Okay. And I purposely cleared out my pane over here just to show you how easy it is to open that data again by loading it into the environment. And now we have 4 panes available to us. And we know that the hospital script is here. So one thing that's going to be helpful to us is in our script to remember to attach files before using them. Now, in our book, Making Your Case, we talk about the pros and cons of attaching or not attaching files. Because we are only going to be working with one file at a time in class, this will save us some keystrokes by attaching the files at the beginning of each session. So I'm going to type attach and hospital 1. And when you do that, notice that the function that you're running is in blue, and any parameters that we have within parentheses will be things that are located in your global environment somewhere. And if I just click anywhere on this line and I hit run, you're going to notice that it runs. There are sometimes errors in that show up in your console. This is just a warning that's right here. So I'm fine. It's just a warning. I know that's a warning. I'm telling you it's a warning. So that's fine. Now you can also look and see these, all these 161 observations of these 26 variables, like I showed you last time. If we hit enter, what that's going to do now is it's going to open a second tab up here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to show you just 3 functions today, and then you'll be replicating this in your homework. So the first thing I want to show you is the summary function. And by the way, you can skip lines here. So I'm going to skip a line, and I'm going to tell you the summary function. And in the book and in here, I note a function by having parentheses after it, because you're always putting something in your parentheses. So the summary function gives you general information, and I'm going to show you. Now you can put in whatever you want as well. We run this, if you find this that you want to put more notations in. So if I put summary and hospital 1, it's going to give me a summary of everything that's in this data set. And I'm going to hit run, and the results are going to appear here in the console. And what this does is it shows you each of the 26 variables. If you counted this up, you would see 26. And it gives you a little bit of information about each one. Now, if R thinks that the variable you're working with is a number, it's going to give you, let's take a look at one that makes more sense. I'm going to look at this LOS variable, which is length of stay. And you should read more about this data set in your textbook. And this is the patient's length of stay during their most recent admission. So the shortest length of stay is 2 days. The median or middle value is 10 days. The average length of stay or mean is 17.27 days, and the maximum is 99 days. So like I said, if R thinks the variable is numeric in some way, it'll give you that information. Now, notice that some of these are dates, and R thinks that these dates are numeric, and they are numeric. You can actually do some calculations with them. But most of these dates are not, we don't think of these as dates that you can manipulate. But you could, actually length of stay was calculated by subtracting the discharge date from the admit date. But this tells you this for every single person in our data set, in the hospital data set. So we know that the patient, of these 161 patients, the shortest length of stay was 2 days and the longest was 9. So that's for variables that R thinks consist of numbers. When R thinks a variable consists of something other than numbers, like a category, and we'll look at this one, gender, it'll give you the categories that there are and the counts of the people that fall into that category. So here we have 2 genders listed. We have 64 females and 97 males. This return 30 is a yes/no variable. So again, you'll need to read about what each of these variables means, but if it doesn't have the minimum, maximum, median, and mean, then R thinks it is a variable that's made up of a category. And we're going to talk a lot more about variables in future lessons. But one thing that I wanted to show you is how to display a little bit more information about these variables that are made up of categories, and that's what we're going to look at today. So I'm going to make a hashtag and to say display information about variables that are categories. Like, when I just want to be clear that categories, female is a category of gender, male is a category of gender here. So there's a lot of ways that we can do this, but one way, and you read this in the chapter for your reading this week, is to store the information that we're going to place in a vector. And a vector is really just a container that holds information. And the value of using a vector is that we can refer back to it later. And you can call your vector anything you want, but I suggest that you don't call it any of your names that are the variables in your data set, because R will simply get confused about this. So I'm going to demonstrate this by creating a table of gender, and you'll see why we need to do this in a little bit. So I'm just going to call this vector G for gender. You could call it S for sex, you could call it really anything. And we're going to assign it the value of the genders that are in our data set, but we first have to sort them, and that is using the table function that you read about in this chapter. And just again to be clear, and again it's in your text, we assign it this value by making an arrow with a less than and dash sign. And so when I run this, you're going to notice, oops, did I not run this? Display information. Yes. So now we've stored these sorted values in this vector called G, and if we want to display them, all we do is type G. So it sorts it here in line 9, but it'll display it for us in the console in line 10. And when I hit run, you will see, as we knew, that there are 64 females and 97 males in this data set. Now, why would we display it this way and not using the summary function? Well, when we sort it and store it in the vector G, we could actually create a graph. And the way we're going to display these variables that are categories is by using a bar plot. So we're going to put the function, called bar plot. And in the parentheses, we're going to put the sorted variable. So I'm just going to put G in here. Now this is going to be very rudimentary. In future lessons, I'll show you how to make this look much nicer. But here we have our first graph. And now this is in the plots pane. And we don't have it labeled or anything like that, but we can see here that there are about a third fewer females in our data set than there are males. And the last thing I want to show you for today is how to export that. So to do that, before we do that, I'm going to, I just opened PowerPoint, and I'm going to show you that in a minute, but I'm going to export this. And I'm going to copy it. Now you can do any of these things. So you can copy it to the clipboard or save it as a PDF or save the image. Now, what I'm going to tell you is when you copy it into whatever you're going to copy it, whether it's Word or PowerPoint or something like that, you're not going to be able to edit the image in there. You're going to have to edit it in here. So I'll show you that for the future. But here I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. And I'm going to hit Control copy, and I'm using this on a Mac, so I'm going to copy image. I'm going to make this smaller. I'm going to open this up, and I'm just going to change the layout. This would be a typical type slide that you put it into. Now, when you paste it, you're going to want to paste it as a picture. And there is the graph the plot that you created previously. So that's really helpful. And once you do that, you can close this. Okay, so here's your script, and I want to show you the value of doing this. Now, if we would want to do something similar for another variable that is made up of a category, we can do that easily. And I just want to demonstrate that for you before we conclude today. And let's say, for instance, we wanted to create a variable, create a similar bar plot, but for the variable spouse. This is whether somebody is living with a spouse or a significant other. Now, if we keep this vector as G, we're going to overwrite what we currently have. So we can just do that. I'm going to change this. We're going to call the vector G, but I'm going to change it to spouse. And if I highlight all of this and run this, we're going to see that there are 86 individuals, and you're looking at this in here. I'm going to make this bigger for you. 86 of the patients living with a spouse or significant other, and that's the yes that you now see here. The upper limit is above the 80 here, and 75 who do not. But notice, you can scroll through your plots. Previously, we had labels of female and male, and now we have yes and no. And so that's the beauty of working with a script, is you don't have to write all this code over again. You can just, as we go through the class, we'll add to this, and you can make notations as to what each of these functions means. And then when you're doing your own research or when you're doing the homework, all you have to do is change names of variables. So I hope you found this lesson helpful. Oh, before we, we'll just leave things as is for now. I hope you found this lesson valuable. And again, your homework for this week is going to look very similar to this lesson today.